If you're looking for Magic cards, look no further than Flipside Gaming. They have all the latest Magic singles and product that you need to actually leave the house and battle in Magic the Gathering. And right now, if you would like to save 10% on your orders from Flipside Gaming, use the promo code CGB at checkout. That is promo code CGB. Hello and welcome back to another day in the arena. It's me, it's CGB, and today we're playing a Simic counter mid-rangey thing. I guess mid-range is where you would go with mana dorks and these kind of big game things in the end, although it's a very aggressive deck with very little removal of any kind. I recently went 7-1 in a constructed event. We're going to be playing in events a bit more to start this format off. And that is because I want to grind more gold and grind a collection faster. And if you have a decent collection, if you have a pretty good deck, I think that the events are the best way to get your collection, much better than ladder. The rewards for being mythic or different tiers on ladder are not very good compared to events. So I want more packs. I need to get more packs in order to get all the mythics that I want to make my crazy brews with, because despite opening all those packs, as you see, I'm down to 3 rares and 4 mythics, and I have a lot of places I want to use those wild cards. So I need to grind. I gotta get grinding in the constructed events. But let's talk about this deck. So this was a tricky one to build. There's basically a lot of different ways to go. I decided that I still wanted the Explore package because the first event I played yesterday on the release of Ravnica Allegiance, I played against 5 mono red decks. So immediately it seemed to me that people were adding mono red gets a few good cards, Skewer the Critics being one, a common, which I'm sure you will see plenty of times. But this being a common means it's a very easy card to get your hands on, which means that the budget-friendly players can play mono red. It also lets them grind gold and packs faster, which lets them acquire cards quicker. So I decided if I wanted to beat mono red, I needed strong life gain options. And here we have Wildgrowth Walker, of course, along with the Explore package on Merfolk Branchwalker and Jadelight Ranger. And we have the life gain from Hydroid Krasis, which when you start casting it later in the game after building up some mana, gains some life, draws some cards, and becomes a huge body that they have to deal with. Also along the way, another take I have on the format right now is that enchantments really matter. We all know about the might of Experimental Frenzy. That is not going anywhere, but along with that are cards hanging out now like Hadana's Climb, as well as just a variety pack of off-the-wall things. Conclave Tribunal is still solving everything, and there are a few other decks. Believe it or not, I've already played against decks like this, High Alert, which has defenders able to attack and every creature assigns damage equal to its toughness rather than its power. And other cards, such as Theater of Horrors, are very popular right now in the meta. A brand new enchantment for 3 that basically lets the opponent get ahead of you in cards. And another card, I feel like I could do this for a very long time, but I think that you get the picture. But the other one I was going to throw out there, I kind of blanked on it for a hot second. But I have seen it. I have run into this one a few times too. Ethereal. Yeah. Oh wait, it's black and white. That's why it's not there. Ethereal Absolution, which for 6 mana can take a huge chunk out of any creature deck. For those of you wondering, that -1 effect is immediate. We wouldn't even get to see our Jadelight Rangers and Branchwalkers. So with all the enchantments that I'm seeing out there, I'm running some Thrashing Brontodons. I kind of wish they were Reclamation Sages because I always want the body too, but Brontodon and that big booty is also good against red regardless. All right, I like the deck. The new cards like Zegana, this is doing okay. Giving your Wildgrowth Walker trample can be big game, whereas a white deck could block it forever with the 1/1 lifelinkers. Oh, we didn't talk about Growth Chamber Guardian and Incubation Druid. So a sick combination with these cards is to put a +1/+1 counter on them with Hadana's Climb and get the effect right away. So every time you add a counter to the Growth Chamber Guardian, you can search for another Guardian. Every time you add a counter one counter to the Druid, it can then tap for 3 mana. So you don't have to add the counter from adapting, you can add it in other ways. And then, of course, they can gain trample from the Utopian Speaker when the time is right. All right, some might say, why not Simic Ascendancy in this deck? I found this card to be completely unwieldy. You have to have it on turn 2. I think it's very annoying that the counters on Simic Ascendancy have to be added to Simic Ascendancy. It would be much, much better if you could play Simic Ascendancy and immediately gain a counter for all the counters you have on creatures right now, but it doesn't. If I draw this on turn 6 and I already have 6 counters on the creatures on the board, I start from scratch on Simic Ascendancy. I found this a very hard card to get the win with. Maybe we'll build up some proper memeage in the future, but for right now, we're going to play this kind of spiky, Simic-y mid-range thing, and I really liked it, so I hope that you enjoy it as well. Our opening hand has Wildgrowth Walker and Jadelight Ranger, as well as 2 lands and Llanowar Elves, a Growth Chamber Guardian for the gas, and a Hydroid Krasis for the late game. I'm going to keep it. Now, we are not the type of deck that removes things. We're the type of deck that puts things out there in hopes that they get in the way. I'm pretty nervous about this elf getting shocked and potentially ruining our game plan, but here we go. Let's see where we end up. Looks like our opponent's got a Teamer deck, and they're going straight to Growth Chamber Guardian, so somebody else trying out the new cards. That's good to see. I think I want to hit a Wildgrowth Walker. Can still be a real house to deal with. Let's see what happens. And then next turn, a Jadelight Ranger. If I draw a land, I might go to double Wildgrowth Walker, but we'll see. Opponent plays a land, they can swing in with the Growth Chamber Guardian and threaten a pump. Or they can straight cast another Guardian and not attack at all. New cards, we've all got to figure out how they work. I do think that we go straight to Jadelight Town and not go for double Walker. I want to keep hitting my lands. I want to be moving forward on mana every turn that I can. And with another Jadelight on top, that's such a good draw to see, but I'm actually going to bin it because I do need land. And I think that falling behind on land and putting everything on the Wildgrowth Jadelight plan could be a mistake. Now I have an extra mana, so I can use Incubation to go find another creature of some kind to play. And look at that, never punished, right? We found another Wildgrowth Walker. I could attack here, but I think that the opponent, if they figure out kind of the line, will turn around and attack me. I do have a life advantage, though. Okay, I'll send in an attack now. Let's put some pressure on the opponent. There was a chance of a shock or something like that, but if they had that, it would have hit a Llanowar Elf by now, I'm certain. So I don't think that playing around the shock is an important part of this turn. Let's see what the opponent has. It's a Steel Leaf Champion in their 3-color deck. And what an interesting pile we're up against. So I think our opponent doesn't seem to be on any removal. I think the best line I can take is playing another Incubation Druid and playing another Wildgrowth Walker and taking a turn off from my land drops. As much as I don't want to, I think that the upside is so high to having 2 walkers going, because the very first removal that our opponent draws is going to kill the biggest walker, but having a backup to keep blocking down the paladin is pretty important. So our opponent left mana up. That could be a Frilled Mystic. And I think it makes a lot of sense to play around a Frilled Mystic. If I'm going to get something countered, I think what I'd prefer to have countered is the Growth Chamber Guardian, and then I can resolve the Jadelight Ranger. The opponent knows about the Jadelight Ranger, though. So here's what I'll do. I'll play a Wildgrowth Guardian, and then if the opponent does not Frilled Mystic it, I won't play the Jadelight Ranger. I'll activate the Guardian and just start getting more creatures onto the battlefield. So let's see how the opponent responds here. And that resolves. So now I'm going to pass the turn. It's really important against Frilled Mystic to have effects like this. Now the opponent gets a similar effect in that they get to make a 4/4. We're also holding up Incongruity, which can turn any creature into a 3/3 frog. And they get to fetch another Growth Chamber Guardian. But now there's a bit of a staring match over this card. And oh, we're Teamer Elves. Sometimes you get surprised. And another Guardian, okay. And let's see what's cooking. Does the opponent wish to attack us? Right now, this elf is providing 5 points of power and toughness and also has an ability to fetch more clan callers, which actually plays really well with the theme my opponent has going. Really, really well. Here comes a Steel Leaf Champion. If I turned it into a 5/4, I guess I could trade with it somehow, or I could hit it with Incongruity, but I don't like that play. I think that it's best to take the damage here. I definitely don't want to trade my walker for it, and we're about to get 2 huge walkers. So I'll go to damage. And then I will fetch up another Growth Chamber Guardian, shuffle the deck. Which matters somewhat. We had 3 creatures on the bottom from the incubation. Another Brontodon off the top. Now it's time to hit that Jadelight Ranger button. It's like smashing the like button when you smash the Jadelight Ranger. I'm out of Explore creatures. I don't think another Wildgrowth Walker is what I'm after. We've already got so much action from these. And look at those go. Now we can play our land drop. We're getting to the point where big Krasi can start coming through the air. What do we want to do with the rest of our mana? We could play out the Brontodon, or we could hold up the Incongruity, which can also take out the Clan Caller. Perhaps getting some attacks in here makes sense. Let's see, if we attack with our creatures, taking out the Clan Caller at instant speed could be huge if our opponent doesn't have Spell Pierce, and I don't think they do. It wouldn't make a lot of sense for the deck to me. So let's send these 2 and see how the opponent wants to do their blocking. From this, they should be able to gather that we're going to kill their Clan Caller, but let's find out. Okay, those combined are still 4, and this becomes a 2/2 and a 4/4. That's not enough to kill the walker, so that's fine. Let's go Incongruity, take out the Clan Caller before it can fetch a million more Clan Callers, and instead you get a Frog Lizard. I did stack my damage poorly. I should have stacked the bigger one first. I didn't even notice that. So a little bit of a brain fart there on stacking the damage. Put the bigger one first. Oops. Should probably give a proper oops emote. And Teamer Elves, what is the red mana for, do you suppose? Grand Warlord Ratha? Something like that, I believe it's called. So this turn, what I most want to do is adapt my Incubation Druid so I have a ton of mana for the future turns. Our opponent did not play this land shock style, so perhaps they have another Frilled Mystic. They do have activating this Guardian available, so we definitely want to start making huge Krasis. Let's adapt our Incubation Druid. And now that taps for 4 mana, or for 3 mana. 4 mana is total. But for 3 mana, I'll play another Brontodon. I also have the mana to activate it if our opponent plays some kind of an enchantment or artifact here worth blowing up. And we'll kick it back to our opponent with the board being just full of gummy bodies. Much the way that our deck wants it to be, and then Hydroid Krasis can start thumping in the air. I believe our opponent didn't activate their Growth Chamber Guardian. And now they are. Well, implies that they do not have a Frilled Mystic that I played around nothing earlier, but I'd rather be safe than sorry. Not a lot of regret at this point. It's a card that you have to keep in mind. Frilled Mystic, I keep saying, if you don't know the new cards yet, is the Lizard Wizard that flashes in and counters a spell for 4 mana. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Yeah, let's get to Krasis land. So we pay 8, we pay 10 mana total. With X is 8. We draw 4 cards, we gain 4 life, we have an 8/8 flying monster. And we'll just keep kicking it back over. Our Wildgrowth Walkers have more toughness than our opponent has beef, so there's no reason to worry too much about that. There's Rhythm of the Wild. That's probably another purpose for the elf deck here. the teamer style of elves. Harbor is here. Send over the Krasis. What do you got for the flyer? Doesn't appear to be a thing at this point that they have for the flyer. So, play out other cards. I think I can play out another Brontodon. I could play the other Krasis, but I'd rather play some of these other creatures first, so I don't have to discard to hand size, and it gives me another turn just to play more lands, and to see what the opponent can do to deal with the Krasis they're already facing. And I think I'll end it there, leaving up Incongruity, a Growth Chamber Guardian activation, or a sacrifice of a Brontodon. Here comes Beast Whisperer. We'll go ahead and use a Brontodon to blow up a Rhythm of the Wilds, and the opponent's going to scoop it up. I guess they just wanted to show the Beast Whisperer. This hand has 2 lands, an Explorer Dork, a Mana Dork, a Bronto, a Chamber Guardian. We are on the draw. Without a Wildgrowth Walker, I always get nervous, but we'll try it. We will keep it. And behold, red mages. There be red decks. And, hate being on the draw against red, but what can you do? Apparently you lose coin flips sometimes. Alright, no turn 2 play, although it's very likely whatever we play from this spot will get shocked or destroyed. I'm going to run out the Incubation Druid. It doesn't have a life expectancy in this game anyway, and whoa, nothing happened. That is interesting. It does mean our opponent doesn't have Lightning Strike. They could still have Skewer the Critics, Wizard's Lightning, but no Shock, no Lightning Strike at this time. Alright, the opponent's sizing up Incubation Druid, deciding perhaps how important it is to kill that immediately. It is a Mana Dork, and Bolt the Bird is the saying. If the opponent attacks here, we probably won't block because it lets the opponent kill the Druid with a Goblin Chain Whirler. But we will see. So, when you keep a hand with no 2-drop, no Lightning Bolt, no Shock, no Lightning Strike, no Shock, you're looking at cards like Skewer the Critics, you're looking at cards like Wizard's Lightning, Goblin Chain Whirler, and okay, Legion Warboss also makes a lot of sense, and that is obnoxious. Now, if the opponent had held back the Firebrand, I couldn't block here, but I guess it's kind of the same, because I just end up taking 1 damage either way. Let's go for a Thrashing Brontodon, and a Llanowar Elves, and say go. The Legion Warboss is a very scary card. There's no question that that thing can beat the crap out of us. We have to get it off the battlefield somehow, or we have to eat the elves, the goblins, every turn. And I have a feeling that eating the goblin will mean the Thrashing Brontodon will die, but I still feel like I just have to eat the goblins. I feel a lot of pressure to do this. Is it real? The opponent didn't attack with the War Boss. If the opponent had a Lightning Strike, though, they could use the Fanatical Firebrand to kill the Bronto anyway, so I think I make the block. Because they could have just gone Lightning Strike, sacrifice Fanatical Firebrand, and my Bronto would be dead now. Alright, they are going to use a Wizard's Lightning. Interesting. So we have to make sure we keep adding beef to the board. Well, that can make a Frog Lizard out of the War Boss. Is that what I wish to do? Maybe, no, I think I probably want a creature, because the other thing is I could turn this into a 3/5 right now. That is pretty huge, and it taps for 3 mana. But it's 3 mana of 1 color. Which means I can't use Incongruity at instant speed with it. This is a tough spot, because if I Incubation, I might find a Wildgrowth Walker, which could really take over the game. It's tough, but I will try to find a Wildgrowth Walker. I think that's the best thing I can do. And we found one. And we'll play Branchy. Get that Explorer on. Another Incubation Druid is not right for this stage of the game. What I really want, of course, is more Explorer. And no attacks. The opponent's hand can't be too good. The no 2-drop and their 3-drop was War Boss, but they didn't really have the removal to burn their way through the Brontodon, so they had to throw away a token. They're still sitting on this Firebrand. It all screams to having maybe another Wizard's Lightning, and it's possible they have a card like Experimental Frenzy, but it's not the red hands I think I've become used to battling with or battling against. Here come the dorks. I don't know if I want to block with my Wildgrowth Walker here and lose it to another lightning bolt of some kind. The opponent's thinking about whether or not to throw in this Firebrand, but I would certainly block it. I think with Growth Chamber Guardian coming, actually, if I get the bolts out of my opponent's hand with Growth Chamber Guardian coming, I just start making a chain of 4/4s if they can't interact, and I don't have another Explorer creature. So let's make the opponent kill the Wildgrowth Walker if they can. Goblin Chain Whirler will take out the Branchwalker and the Llanowar Elves. Fanatical Firebrand can take out the Druid, but the opponent chooses not to. I find that strange. The Druid's a very good card. So we can play the Krasis here, which would be a 4/4 gain 2 life flyer. But I think I'm just going to run the Guardian train for a while, especially while the opponent's tapped low and I know I can adapt. Well, there's nothing to think too hard about. Their Fanatical Firebrand activation can only head upstairs, but perhaps they need to read the Elf Crab Warrior. Look like crab. Talk like people. Crab people. And we will activate immediately to make sure that a shock or something that our opponent may draw doesn't interfere with the Guardian becoming a 4/4. And we'll go fetch another Guardian. Let the chain begin. And we will not attack. We are the defense for sure in this matchup. Now let's see how the opponent wants to play this turn. The question is usually, did they draw a lightning bolt? Some way to deal direct damage to make their attacks, especially with a card like Chain Whirler, better. Whoa. Okay, what's going on? There might be another Chain Whirler. So I think my block should stay very conservative. I will block the Fanatical Firebrand. That is a very annoying card that I want gone. And I will block the Get to Lava Runner. And I will not block with the Incubation Druid. Trying to figure out like what this means. I'm not sure what the opponent drew up for my blocks. Blocking Chain Whirler is potentially really good to kill it, but I think I can wait. I think I can wait on that effect. I think I'll just be very careful. With my opponent with 2 cards, I'm a long way from getting burned out, and with the Hydroid Krasis, I can gain back a little life when I need to. So let's see what it is. What is the trick, you could say, that the opponent is holding? A Banefire for the Wildgrowth Walker. Interesting. They're playing very interestingly with combat damage, because they could have, again, removed the Wildgrowth Walker before combat if they wished. They left up 1 mana, but I don't think they have a shock. For 5 mana, I could turn this into a way to produce 4, which is very nice, but I think it's better to keep the chain going. The chain of fools, the chain of crab people. And we'll take that action and put another Growth Chamber Guardian into hand. We can deploy it now. I think I will. Just to have another blocker on the board, and we'll say no attacks. The 4/4s will keep piling up. And the opponent's going to scoop it up to the army of crab people, and they didn't even get to see the joys of the Hydroid Krasis. We have an interesting hand with no blue mana and very medium power level, but with 2 incubations, it's a bit of a mystery because it could have Wildgrowth Walker and Jadelight Ranger in it, and then we definitely keep it. I'm going to give it a try. We're learning about the deck, so let's learn some more. Elf to elf. Our opponent winning the art war, if you care about that sort of thing. I'm going to incubation first because if you Branchwalker a card you want to the top, you can't really incubate and get the same effect. There's a Jadelight Ranger. Okay. And I suppose I'll play the Branchwalker and see what's on top. Another Jadelight Ranger. Seems good to spam Jadelight Rangers and just try to find our blue mana and get through our deck, so I'll keep you. I don't know how great they'll be if this is Golgari, or Stompy for that matter, but a Wildgrowth Walker is probably what we need more than anything else. Alright, Incubation Druid to go with Llanowar Elves. Our opponent's also on the mana ramp plan. They could be a deck similar to ours. So I'm going to open with an Incubation, see if we find Wildgrowth Walker. And we do not, but we got our own Incubation Druid and Jadelight Ranger number 3. What's better, another Mana Dork or spamming all the Jadelight Rangers? Eventually, when this gets activated, it can brickwall Jadelight Rangers forever. And the opponent having one of these active is going to give them a huge mana advantage over me. We haven't drawn a Hydroid Krasis yet, and we haven't seen one go by, so they're on their way. I think I'll take the Druid. Let's send in our Branchy while we can. And let's get the Druid onto the battlefield. Mana advantage is much better earlier in the game, and like I said, once this is pumped, it brick walls us anyway. And there's Wilderness Reclamation, which is kind of a weird thing with only 2 lands on the battlefield. So let's tap here. Then let's adapt the Incubation Druid into a 3/5. Then let's use it to play the Jadelight Ranger. And a Growth Chamber Guardian is a lot of beef, so we'll keep it. Our opponent looks like they're doing pretty unfair things. And we also have, besides Hydroid Krasis, blue mana, we also have 3 Thrashing Brontodons to dig for here. Maybe Growth Chamber Guardian wasn't a keep because of that. There's Beast Whisperer. Our opponent is looking to do nutty things, which you gotta give it up for that. Alright. I'm going to start the party with the Growth Chamber Guardian because it shuffles the deck. And then we Jadelight Ranger and see if we can stack some great stuff on top. But first, since that's 5 mana total and we have 5 mana, let's send some stuff after the opponent. Get the beat down while we can. It's a lot of damage, but the opponent has Beast Whisperer and Wilderness Reclamation. It seems like nutty things could be coming for us. This doesn't shuffle until I put a counter on it, actually. And the opponent's going to scoop it up. I guess they feel they've fallen too far behind. I thought that we might still see them do nutty things, but I understand the frustration of being mana screwed. Well, we have Wildgrowth Walkers, but no Explore creatures. But I'm still going to try out this hand. We have a turn 2 Brontodon if our elf goes unmolested. And then any Jadelight Ranger or Merfolk Branchwalker we draw combines to make just a giant threat. So let's see where it goes. White mana, Vanguard, life gain beats. Oh boy. Here's to the Bronto. Let's just slow this down right away. Legion's Landing, yep. Here comes small creatures, and they will get bigger. That's how it works. Here's my Wildgrowth Walker, and I could leave a mana up to activate the Brontodon, but at this point I don't even want to do that, so let's just get double Walker down And if the opponent wants to attack into this to flip their landing, they're going to lose. They're going to lose a few critters. And we're gearing up our mana for the Hydroid Krasis, which has to jump up in the air and stop things like Healer's Hawks from wrecking everything. From pecking away and gaining that life. Benelish Marshall right on time. One drop, Marshall. Oh, the opponent's not going to be shy in throwing away 2 creatures here. Never mind, they actually came to reason and figured out that was a horrific idea. Alright, now with Krasis available, I think I'd rather play the Druid and evolve it and get even more cards out of the deal. I said evolve, but of course I do mean adapt. Having large Krasis is very important in this deck for getting to the late game that you need to get to. And the opponent's just, you know, they're spamming their stuff. They're doing their thing. Here comes Conclave Tribunal, perhaps. Of course, we can sack the Brontodon in response to that. Here it comes. What's it targeting? It's targeting Brontodon. We'll sack Brontodon. We'll blow up the Legion's Landing because the Tribunal will have nothing under it. And now the opponent doesn't get to flip. Vanguard will grow. Vanguard will attack along with a Hawk. They threw away their Vampire for no reason, but I guess they missed that. We'll give them I mean, maybe it's not an oops. Maybe their pushing damage is exactly what they're trying to do. So let's go ahead and grow the Incubation Druid. Turn it into a 3/5, then use it for mana to play Merfolk Branchwalker to grow the Wildgrowth Walkers and gain back a whole bunch of life. Hitting another land is sweet too, just making for a better Krasis next turn. And we can pass the turn and prepare for a giant jellyfish. Right now it's a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Could be an 8. Our opponent found their growing creature, the Pridemate. The opponent throws away their Leonin Vanguard. Sure. I'm not going to throw away my Branchwalker to absorb damage from the Adanto. I'll save that. We might need it for something different later. And my life total's not in a tremendous amount of jeopardy. So that's 8 now. It's a big creature. Plus we get 4 cards and 4 life. And another Krasis is never too far away when you start going down the Krasis road. So our opponent's at 32. The road is long before we can start beating them down. But not as long as you may think. And that's just a concession right there on the spot. They don't want to see where the jellyfish train goes. On the play, Llanowar Elves, yeah, always. Growth Chamber Machine, a Bronto, why not? Next, Forest Cumena Speaker. Now we get the Merfolk tribe. We're getting a wide variety of decks today, which is pretty exciting. I think that getting the Bronto down and just cutting off anything at all is a good move. Growth Chamber Guardian and Merfolk Branchwalker can be the play next turn. Breeding Pool will pump the Cumena Speakers because it is an island, but they're both running into a Bronto wall, and a Krasis is already looming. So let's get a look at the top of the deck, see what we hit. We'll play it before we play our land always, because if you reveal a land, you want to play the land you reveal to give out less information about your hand. I probably said this before, but you never know when somebody new is watching the show. And then Growth Chamber Guardian. Just building a nice wall of beef here to take on the Merfolk. When they don't have their unblockable creatures, they have a lot of trouble pushing damage. If they had them, we'd have to be concerned about finding Wildgrowth Walker. Or using an Incongruity to turn it into a Frog Lizard. So the opponent says go. It feels like a Merfolk Trickster. And the way that it works with Merfolk Trickster is if we try to adapt and the opponent responds with the Trickster, we don't get to search for another Elf Crab Warrior because we lose the ability. So what I'm going to do is play around that by not adapting this turn. I'm going to play a land we're going to play an Incubation Druid, and we're going to hold up the adaptability to use in response to something else happening, and we're going to say go. Our opponent may also have a Swift Warden, but I'm in no hurry to attack my opponent. I'm absolutely in no hurry to attack. The game's going along when you are the Simic deck is usually perfectly fine. And now the opponent has to decide whether or not to use a Trickster here just to have another body on the board, or a Swift Warden if that's what they're holding. And they decide not to, they decide to play nothing. If they play nothing, we may reply by playing nothing into the infinite if necessary. All right, they revealed a Swift Warden. That might be what they held up. It could also be a trap to get me to try my Growth Chamber Guardian. I think I will anyway. At this point, if they use the Trickster, I'm free to use my Incubation Druid next turn. So let's go for the Growth Chamber Guardian activation and see if the opponent's on the Trickster plan as well. So they are. The good news is we still get the counters. So we'll still untap with a 4/4. And then we can buff our Incubation Druid to make for a giant Hydroid Krasis. Wildgrowth Walker off the top is also excellent. Let's go ahead and adapt our Druid now before more Trickster instant speed shenanigans happens, and we'll get a Wildgrowth Walker onto the battlefield and kick it over to the opponent. Never in a hurry to attack. Never ever. Well, not unless you're against a controller combo deck, then you probably have to figure it out. But as long as I'm against any other creature deck, I will be the defensive player all day. And I'm fine with that role. Here is Silvergill Adept, drawing a card, still showing us that they run a Swift Warden. A Water Trap Weaver will lock down something, and it's going to lock down Incubation Druid, which is a nice play. So I'm going to wait till Incubation Druid comes back to play my Jellyfish, as every card in every life is great. And we'll play another Wildgrowth Walker and say go. Our opponent's a ways off from Tempest Call or Kill You. Right now they're at 12 total damage. And as long as I can rip Krasis into some Explorer creatures, I think we can stay out of that kind of range. Ha! Pump fake. Psych. All right. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Let's go ahead and drop it. If the opponent has a counter, we still get the trigger, which is why we don't have to be shy about playing this into potential counter magic. Although, when you draw 3 lands, it's not the feels good. Not in any way. Yeah, I'm gonna keep sitting and waiting. I was really hoping for at least an Explorer creature there to get the Wildgrowth Walkers moving. The opponent's still holding on to their Swift Warden, as if I'm going to target their things. Not really what my deck does, which is a bit of a liability when if this deck actually starts to show up in the meta at all. Cards like Dive Down get a lot worse. Our opponent does have the sleep. If they had a Swift Warden on the board, I think they could have won the game. Anyway, this flood is hit at the wrong time. No, they wouldn't have won the game. It just would have been a better clock. They would have had 3 more damage. What am I saying would have won the game? I'm ridiculous. Let's go get another Guardian and play another Guardian. And we can go block, block, go to 3, and then our creatures untap. So the question is, does the opponent have another sleep? They have Hadana's Climb. Well, we can blow that up with the Bronto before it can flip, but it's at least going to make a better threat. So, if we want the blocks that keep our creatures alive, we can go like this and take 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. And that's not acceptable. So, if we block like this and this, we take 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and we go to 1. And I guess that's where it has to be. And now the creature's untap. And the opponent's going to scoop because the counterattack, I believe, is absolutely lethal. I thought they might have another sleep, and that would have been game, but they do not. On the draw, this is the hand. It's got Wildgrowth and 2 Jadelight Rangers. I have to try it. If we draw a Forest or an Island, it's an amazing hand. So the upside on this hand is pretty high. Immediately we see a blue-white land, and I'm immediately thinking control, which is probably a rough matchup. But they also have some tap land issues. So let's see if we can get out in front of it. Here's search for his Kanta. Okay, probably some kind of Turbo Fog, which we don't have a great matchup with Turbo Fog, not gonna lie. The Thrashing Brontodons are about the only interaction, and they're not the greatest. So here, what am I doing? I think I'd need to play the Jadelight Rangers and keep the mana coming so I can just get beating down. I think that playing Wildgrowth Walker and Incubation would be pretty greedy. But, Wildgrowth Walker beating down, though, is pretty strong, but it's just another dork. Everything's a dork. Yeah, let's go for value. Let's try to dig up cards that matter. Does not matter. Land, good. We get to play it. And we get to Incubation and try to find card that matters. Another Growth Chamber Guardian, we already have one. I guess I'm taking a Wildgrowth Walker. So I think the best chance I have is a very explosive Hadana's Climb. If I can play Climb next turn, and we can get it flipped soon, maybe a Jadelight Ranger can hit for 1,000,000. But if this is Wilderness Reclamation, yeah, you're going to see that we're already in a terrible place. So what's the play? If we play Climb, we only have 1 mana left. The greedy play is to try to explore our way into another land and then play the Climb. I guess if we miss, we can always play, what, a Growth Chamber Guardian? Well, I'm already in a terrible spot. Let's be greedy. Ouch. Alright. I guess we can play out the Wildgrowth Walker to get the Explorer triggers now, but whatever. Opponent's like, why did he play it in that order, idiot? Well, there was a plan. It's just probably not going to be a very good one. Here comes Chemister's Insight. Here comes Teferi. Here comes Nexus. Let's see if it's all there. I'm not going to call it out by name, but just as kind of a good word for pros, I played against somebody in the streamer event, a professional Magic player and content creator, and they put this together very quickly. They definitely had the game won. They definitely could have Teferi'd and Nexus'd me into a 1,000,000. There was absolutely... Now, it's important to note we weren't playing for anything. Like, we're playing for rewards here. I don't fault this player. I just want to give some props to a pro player out there and the pro community, because it said volumes to me. They had all the cards. They had everything they needed. They had the game one. They had the combo. They had it on, like, turn 5. My creatures were sitting over here. I was tapped out. They conceded. So they like basically were like, here's a Nexus, here's a Teferi, here's a Reclamation, here's a Search, and then they scooped. And I thought that was when we were playing for basically no stakes, I thought that was very kind of them to kind of acknowledge, yeah, this is broken stuff. I just want to see if I can do it. I don't need to sit here and mill your deck and Teferi you forever. So props to a member of the pro community for doing that. And for those of you who hate on pros and say that they're all spiky and evil, let's cool it a little bit. You can't say that about everybody.
Hold that thought.
Anyway, this player, there is something on the line. We are playing for the gold and such. And I'm going to tolerate this for a certain amount of time just to show you what's up now with Nexus and Wilderness Reclamation, etc., etc., etc. and Teferi, it is absolutely insane. It's crazier than it was, and this card is a big reason why more enchantment removal seems absolutely necessary, because it's a card you absolutely must remove or you have to get really lucky against. The opponent has to draw basically horribly, absolutely horribly, for you to really have any chance in the game after Wilderness Reclamation is on the field doing its thing. And that is certainly a possibility. It's happened to me a few times, but as you can see here, not likely, not likely. So I'm not going to make the opponent play it out. How are they going to win? They're going to exile everything I have with Teferi. Whether or not they even run a way to win the game is completely trivial. Like, it doesn't matter. Maybe they have a Hydroid Krasis in their deck. Maybe they absolutely don't do anything but the Teferi combo. But get used to it. It's really good. So we have to find ways to, if we're going to play like ranked, then our deck, such as this one, probably has to play some cards like Spell Pierce. Probably has to play some cards that otherwise just don't fit and don't feel right in order to compete. And the bad tension on that, of course, is red. When the opponent plays red, cards like that can be a real liability when all we want are things to get on the ground and gum up the game. So finding the cards to slot in to actually find ways to have game against that kind of deck it's going to be tough. It's going to be really tough. Anyway, double Gitu Lava Runner. Not a lightning bolt, unless for some reason they're ignoring my creature. Definitely a huge risk here to playing another Llanowar Elf, since our opponent could have Goblin Chain Whirler. I'm going to go for Growth Chamber Guardian and hope I get to untap and activate it and hold back Wildgrowth Walker, and I will be praying that I get to untap and draw into an Explorer creature. Opponent's reaching for their removal spell, and it does look like they have one to deal with the Guardian. Right on time. So is it Goblin Chain Whirler? This is a bit of a floody hand. We need to stop drawing land, for sure. And there's the beating. That is not the draw, but now I think am I playing out my Walker? If this Walker gets bolted, do I lose the game, basically? Do I lose it if I don't? So if this gets bolted, I go to 9. I untap. If I draw a Branchwalker to go with my Walker, I'm okay. And if I don't, I play the Utopian Speaker and I have a 4/4. If the opponent attacks from there, I go to 5, and maybe I get to block the Chain Whirler. If they have a few more bolts, am I dead no matter what? I think the best draw I can pull from here is a Jadelight Ranger off the top, so I think I'll play to my best draw, and not play the Wildgrowth Walker here. Of course, they could always hold the bolt up and kill it anyway. So on this attack, we'll say no blocks. The fact that our opponent didn't throw a Lightning Strike or anything means maybe we get to keep our elf, but now I wish I'd blocked, as I did strongly consider it. And the opponent holding priority is either a Shock or another Wizard's Lightning. I don't think I can beat either one, but here is the Utopian Speaker. All the opponent has to do is bolt my face and attack with all. It's a Firebrand. Interesting. Or they just play on full control, or they hold their Firebrand back always. Alright, so I get to absorb 3 damage here, or I get to go... So my hope is that I draw an Explorer creature. Then I have a game. So I'm going to block the Lava Runner and hope to draw an Explorer creature, because absorbing, whether I absorb the 3 damage from the Chain Whirler and trade for the Firebrand, or whether I draw the Explorer creature, that's what matters. Hydroid Krasis, well, it's some life. It's not quite, it's just 1 life, right? Just 1 little life. But I'm not dead if the opponent bricks on their draw. That's not an Explorer creature. Yeah, this whole thing went a little awry. Yep, that works too. Hey, for the first time we have Hadana's Climb and Incubation Druid together on the play, so I'll keep this. We also have the Utopian Speaker. And you can enter the battlefield tapped because we don't have a Llanowar Elf. We've got a hello. I will reciprocate. I've been playing with my emotes off. I turn them back on because of the streamer event. I wanted to be able to give hellos and good games to the best Magic players on the planet and the biggest streamers in the world. But I haven't turned them back off. I probably will when I will probably mute them eventually when they get annoying. When people spam emotes or generally just do the good game stuff that makes me angry. That is when they say good game but don't mean it. That kind of stuff bothers me. So I'm going to, but for now I'll leave it on. I think that the play this turn is Hadana's Climb growing the Druid, since that makes 5 total mana available next turn. Now, if the opponent has a way to kill the Druid here, that's a big letdown, but I thought they would have done it last turn. Now, Merfolk Branchwalker binned Rhythm of the Wilds. That tells me there's likely another Rhythm of the Wilds, and we're going to need a board quickly. That or the opponent really needed a land. All right, 6 mana. 6 mana can play another Incubation Druid, then we can put a counter on it so we have even more mana the next turn. And we can play a Utopian Speaker, which draws a card and puts a 4/4 on the board. And I think that's what I like. So here's this. Here's this. And here's another counter. So we have huge mana. Now the trick is to find, you know who, Hydroid Krasis. The Utopian Speaker, you can adapt for 6 mana, and if you do, it becomes an 8/8. That may be the line if it survives this turn, as an 8/8 is really big. Really big for the opponent to get through. And here is a Wayfinder. That is a new card. It is a 1 green Elf Scout, 2/1 uncommon. Look at the top 4 of your library. You may reveal a creature or land, put it on top of the library, put the rest on the bottom, in a random order. I think it's a very meh card, but there's nothing wrong with trying it out. And in a creature deck, maybe you get the kind of effect you're looking for. Gruul Spellbreaker is an amazing new card with Riot and Trample. And it is good, but it is still just a body. And an 8/8 is going to be too strong. Way too strong. So no blocks this time. My biggest concern is that the opponent can somehow beat down right through us. But if I grow this to an 8/8, and then Hadana's Climb flips, next turn it can swing for 20 if it has 1 more counter. So I think what we want to do is put the counter on the Utopian Speaker. Actually, it's not unblockable. It would have Trample, but it wouldn't be unblockable, and our opponent does have a Kroll Harpooner. So that strategy isn't necessarily going to work. I still definitely want to grow this into an 8/8. That part I'm sure on. And I don't think my opponent has removal or they would have used it, but I still should do it before they draw it. But then I can also block as well. Yeah, if my opponent had removal, they would have killed this. We can put a counter on it anyway to make it play around a Lava Coil if they were slow rolling one for any reason. I'll let my opponent know I'm thinking. We have all this mana too. All right, I'm going to play out the Jadelight Ranger. Actually, yeah, we're going to play out the Jadelight Ranger using this mana. That can go to the graveyard. A forest here would be ideal. Another Utopian Speaker can go to the graveyard. It is legendary. We'll play the land, but we won't play any more of our things. We'll go next. We'll put the +1/+1 counter on the speaker to make it non-lava coilable. We'll say no attacks, and we'll threaten to grow this into a 9/9. If the opponent attacks with the Kroll Harpooner or makes any mistake like that, we can turn it into a 10/10 and 20 them on the next turn. So again, these tap for 3 mana each, so that's what we can do, is basically bump this up. There's the Rhythm of the Wild. Here's the attacker. Here's the block. Maybe the opponent missed the adaptability. Let me read this again to make sure it's not like sorcery speed, that I'm not missing something. All right. Can I tap these for mana? I absolutely can, right? What am I missing? The Spellbreaker... Nope, that doesn't do anything here. All right, I'm just making absolutely sure I'm not missing something with the new cards. Why didn't that work? Is adapt at sorcery speed? It doesn't say anything about that, and it isn't in any other cases. Oh, it already had a +1/+1 counter on it. Okay, okay, friends. So, you can only adapt when you have no +1/+1 counters on it. It doesn't say that. It says if this creature, yeah, it does. It says if this creature has no +1/+1 counters, put 4 counters on it. So that was a big mistake. That was my bad. Learning new cards. Learning new cards. Thank you for your patience with me. And I will tap an Incubation Druid now to use this Jadelight Ranger. That could definitely be a game-swinging moment if we don't get lucky for the rest of the way. Let's also play out some Llanowar Elves. And let's hold on to our Merfolk Branchwalker to play next turn. Now I'm going to move to combat. I'm going to put a counter on the Jadelight Ranger to make it a 5/4 and flip my Winged Temple. And I'm going to go to attacks with my 5/4 Jadelight Ranger. I was so careful too, but I definitely goofed it up when all was said and done. I would rather get their creatures dead, so I'm perfectly fine with them blocking. And then I also have the Winged Temple on defense. So as long as they're, rather than try to get in the air and force like a chump block with our Harpooner and hit for 10, I'd rather have the ability to pump my creatures at instant speed and kind of have an attack that they have to chump block, but then blocks that they can't attack into. Because if they can't really race, I think we're doing a good job. All right, the opponent is going to make that play. So let's use the Winged Temple to grow the Jadelight Ranger into a 6/5, and now it can block the Steel Leaf Champion. And I'm happy to make that trade. That is a trade up in my opinion. So before we use the Temple, let's send in the Jadelight again. The opponent will have to chump it, or they'll take a crazy amount of damage. They could take the damage. I wouldn't be mad. And here comes a Wildgrowth Walker. And here comes Jadelight Ranger. The opponent gives that a nice. Yep, good old-fashioned tag team down here. And we know that there's a Spellbreaker. We know there aren't lands, because they've definitely missed a number of land drops by now. So we know that there's a Spellbreaker that they kept, and probably a few other good creatures. They could be expensive, but it would be weird to keep a Spellbreaker in that situation. So they're probably small creatures. But that leaves us in a great spot. Second Rhythm of the Wilds. All right. Llanowar Elves. Pump up the volume. Dance, dance. Okay. Is it time to attack with more things, or should we keep leaving stuff on defense to absorb our opponent's attackers? I think I like what we've been doing. I'm perfectly happy to keep pounding away with a Jadelight Ranger here. When we do... Oh, no blocks? In that case, we will go for this. And hit for 10. Now the opponent will have to chump block every time through the rest of the game, as long as we have our Jadelight and our Hadana and our Winged Temple. Now remember, the Crawl Harpooner has reach, for those of you screaming that I've been missing lethal. The Crawl Harpooner can chump block that all day. I could have forced the chump block right away and then the next turn, but I think I articulated why I'm happy to keep the Temple on defense a good amount of the time too. Now the opponent's trying to swing this race. They have a 5/5. We have a lot of toughness. So that's 1, 2. This is 3, 4. This is 5. I get to keep my Wildgrowth Walker. And I take 6. All right, let's give that a shot. I think the opponent will use a Spellbreaker to kill a Druid and another elf and the Branchwalker, but I don't think those cards are doing much anyway. Land off the top is not what I wanted to see. The opponent has to chump though. Now if they take these, they take 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, that's not enough. So I could take 6 from the Steel Leaf Champion. If the opponent draws another Steel Leaf Champion, they win, but I would have Hadana's, I would have the Winged Temple to pump a Wildgrowth Walker, so I could still block. So yeah, let's finally force this Crawl Harpooner to block. Not use the Temple, so we have it on defense to potentially chump block with a Wildgrowth Walker against Steel Leaf if we need to. Here's a Wayfinder. That's going to be game, probably. It's not going to add something to the hand this turn, and it's not going to fly and protect from the Jadelight Ranger. Nullhide Ferox on top of the deck. And here comes the beats. So pre-blocks, we will pump up the Wildgrowth Walker. It can now block the Steel Leaf Champion, although it will die. Life is sad. I'll go ahead and make sure that I can't block the champion with that. Never mind. And we'll just put all the blocks in front. Maybe the opponent has a kill creature quest we can help them out with. Hydroid Krasis. Yep, good game. And here comes the Temple. Hit him up, Stevens. Even Steven. I hope that you enjoyed these games with my Simic Midrange deck. I do think after playing some games and thinking about it that I'm a bit creature heavy, so the next evolution I think we'll get some Spell Pierce, maybe some Frilled Mystic, maybe Negate in there to take on the Wilderness Reclamation Scourge that's sweeping the meta, and try to stay good against red. We'll try to... I think Frilled Mystic is too slow against red, but maybe that remains to be seen. Thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you can try out this deck, and if you do, please let me know how it goes in the comments. I will see you, as always, in the next video. My YouTube channel is proudly supported by HauntedFlower.com, shipping officially licensed apparel anywhere in the world, and now featuring Magic the Gathering apparel and accessories. If you use the promo code CGB at your checkout, you can save 10% on any order. That's the promo code CGB at checkout on HauntedFlower.com. That's HauntedFlower.com.